Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race. We're unofficially pending the results of post-race inspection. Chase Briscoe has punched his ticket to the Championship 4 with a dramatic victory and a last-lap pass on Bubba Wallace to pull off the victory there. I'm laughing a little bit because for those of you that follow my Twitter account, I picked Kyle Larson to win the race, so you can imagine what it sounded like in here just a few moments ago. My goodness, Kyle Larson can just not buy a break on a super speedway if they were giving it away and putting it in his hands. My goodness, I thought he was going to make it, and he just ran out of fuel. And I know they said there was a concern, but I didn't realize it was that big of a concern. But apparently that's the case, unless anybody's hearing anything different there. But I got to say, and I've seen comments about this already coming onto the show here tonight, great weekend of racing. I have to say, all three races, very intense competition. We've had some drama, as I mentioned in the caption here. We had playoff contenders finish last in all three races, including, pending the results of post-race inspection, Chase Elliott, who has probably had the most consistent season this year of anybody else. Not the most wins, but again, most consistent overall in a Winston Cup points approach here. But his second last place finish of the year, his first since Richmond back in August, had a wreck out there off of turn 4 in traffic. And in this one here got gobbled up in a multi-car accident over into turn 3 there that ended up being pretty much the biggest mess in this one. In both the Xfinity race and the Cup race, we had the last place runner barely escape a big accident right when they were getting lapped. Same thing happened today with BJ McLeod, as we saw yesterday with Carson Ware. Of course, we'll be talking more about that in the Xfinity and the Truck Series parts of the show here tonight as well. But again, I was thoroughly entertained by all three of these races this weekend. I mean, thankfully the weather held off. There was a big storm that blew through there last night. Hopefully the people that were camping out in the infield were able to weather that okay. My goodness, they put on a show out there. Briscoe is certainly deserving of getting into the Championship 4. He's had a tremendous year. He got off a little bit of a slow start here, but then started winning all those poles and then started winning races. And then, people are starting to look at him in much the same way we saw Truex have all those great seasons in the 19 car there with Joe Gibbs, and not to mention the other teams he'd driven for even before that. A great battle there at the end, some clean passes there, and a tremendous victory there for Chase Briscoe. I absolutely did not see that coming. I always feel like the Toyotas are a little bit of at a disadvantage here. I mean, we had Tyler Reddick win here, but even that one was one where you had a bit of a tangle between a couple of Ford drivers with Brad Keselowski and Michael McDowell, and he was able to kind of snake his way through there. But in this one here, really good battle there right to the finish. Unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection later tonight, Briscoe, your winner with Todd Gilliland in the second spot. Third place goes to Ty Gibbs, with fourth to Bubba Wallace. Fifth to Cole Custer, who was very fast in both Daytona races this year, was in the right in touch with the leaders in both Daytona races on the final lap. Didn't pull off either win there, but as the closing weeks of the Haas factory team, especially for all the struggles they had in yesterday's race on the Xfinity side, fifth place finish, fine job for him. Carson Hocevar comes back from an unscheduled pit stop to get some stage points there, and then come back and finish in the sixth position. Tyler Reddick in seventh. Christopher Bell, the next playoff contender, in the eighth spot there. Zane Smith looked outstanding out there. Looked like the 38 and the 34 were going to link up and really kind of be a threat out there. They were very competitive in the closing stages. Stage 3, they looked fantastic out there. Last Pro's been very high on Zane Smith ever since his Spire Motorsports efforts last year. And, he's been picking up right where he left off on that as well. And Brad Keselowski rounding out the top 10 there as well, still looking to get another win there with his own team. Shane Van Gisbergen bounces back from a spin on entering pit road that stuck him in the infield grass to get an 11th place finish. Daniel Suarez in 12th was right up there with Kyle Larson. Towards the end of the race, got shaken out, still salvaged a 12th place finish there ahead of his teammate Ross Chastain. John Hunter Nemechek and Ryan Preece round out your top 15. Looking a bit further back, and make sure this is the overall one. I thought I saw that Casey Mears got 16th. but it's showing 18th here, 622 thousandths of a second behind the leader. Great job by Mears. My goodness. I know that we didn't really get to see what Mears could do in the August race rather at Daytona. He got in a wreck pretty early on in turns 3 and 4 and had to kind of, rally back from that. But in this one here, kept his nose clean, lost a lap at one point, got it back, and even got some camera time there where they were showing him kind of work up there. I know Lee Diffie brought him up at one point. Great run for him. I mean, my goodness, first Talladega start he's even made since 2016 or 2018 or something like that. Phenomenal run for him there as well. And I have to wonder, with how well that Mears had run here, I wonder if that was the same car that Chandler Smith trashed in the dual races not too long ago there too. Good battles up front. You saw Kyle Busch up there for a bit. He ended up dropping back to 19th at the finish. Anthony Alfredo looked strong, looked to pick up where he left off in the spring when he led, I believe, 15 laps in that Beard Motorsports entry. This time around ends up 21st after leading 2 laps in this one. Austin Hill was as high as the top 5 at one point. Ended up 22nd, potentially trying to pull off a double sweep of the weekend here. But regardless, still gets a solid finish there. Excuse me. And then right back behind him, some playoff drivers that their day definitely did not go well. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that, folks. But yeah, just looking further back in the point stand, the finishing order here behind Austin Hill. I mean, my goodness. Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, and Kyle Larson finishing last 4 cars on the lead lap. Just heartbreaking for those guys there. I mean, difficult situation. You had Kyle Larson there, right up front there, battling with Chase Briscoe and the other drivers. Ends up running out of gas on the back straightaway and drops out of line there in front of William Byron. Byron looks like he's going to make a move. Then he gets spun in that spot that Elliott Sadler spun out of in 2004. Fortunately, keeps the car on all 4 wheels and ends up 25th. You had Denny Hamlin with the throttle issue and dropping back to 24th. Boy, I don't know. I'm just choked up on this one here for sure. Excuse me. My goodness. So Ryan Blaney, the 23rd spot too, running out of fuel. Just a difficult stretch here for a lot of these playoff guys, and it's made things very interesting going into Martinsville next week. But again, nothing more difficult than it was for Chase Elliott at the back of the field here. Just glad everybody's okay. I mean, this was a difficult and aggressive weekend, I would say, at Talladega at the same time. While we had some phenomenal racing, we had some frightening moments here as well. A.J. Allmendinger clobbered the outside wall with the right front of his Kaulig Racing injury, climbed out of the car after it caught fire and got down to the inside of the track there, stopped short of pit road, climbed back out of the car there and was catching his breath, laying on his back there for a bit. I'm glad that NBC followed up and actually did an interview with him over on the Infield Care Center to show that he was okay. So kudos to him on that. Very similar to what we had with William Sawalich in yesterday's race. This was very much a late-breaking story. Bob Pockris tweeting it in the early morning hours today that Sawalich was okay, being checked and released from a local hospital after a serious accident of his own late in the Xfinity Series race after starting on the outside pole there. So glad that he's doing okay as well. These drivers, you can have whatever safety measures are in these cars and whatever, safety advancements at the track as well. It's still a dangerous sport. It's still a tricky situation for these guys. And that's definitely another part of that too. I'm caught off guard here by the race results here. Okay, yeah. I'm just noticing a couple guys that came back out from the wreck earlier. I think I had Austin Cindric in 39th. But it looks like he came back out there and climbed to 34th, kind of like how Eric Jones got back out of the bottom 5 here too. Because I was usually draft the articles while the race is going here, especially once last place is pretty much locked up here. But yeah, I'm seeing AJ. I thought AJ Allmendinger was in 36, but I'm seeing Gragson in 36 now too. So kudos to the Penske team for getting the two back out there. It didn't look like he had too serious of damage, but regardless, 116 laps down to the finish. But Justin Haley, I mean, that was a heartbreaker too. Haley looked so strong at the very beginning of this here, made some just power moves in the high lane, and indeed was still in the high lane when he got up to that accident scene in turn 3, tried to cut low and get clear of it, unfortunately got hooked into the outside wall, and he's now shown in the 39th spot there with Stenhouse in 38th, Allmendinger 37th, and Noah Gragson in 36th. But all this taking a back seat to, again, mentioning Chase Elliott. First time that the number 9 has finished last in a Cup race at Talladega since 1981, when his father Bill was involved in a 12-car accident on lap 2 of that race. And that was the only time Bill finished last. He did not finish last in the 94 car or the 11 at Talladega. An unusual situation and another elements of that there too. But the only 2 times in history that the number 9 car has finished last in a Cup race at Talladega, and one of those was just today. So we'll see if that's going to be the results coming up here too. Also seeing the mentions here, yeah, I mean, all 3 races this weekend having a potentially desperate situation. Seeing guys mentioning Norm Benning, absolutely. Glad he's okay. I actually was able to text him on Friday night there. Glad he was all right. He was just saying, yeah, it's rough deal there with the engine. It's the quickest he ever bailed out of a truck there, too. They're going to try to piece something back together to get back out there in Daytona, because that's a good ride that he has. That's a former Henderson Motorsports effort that he's picked up. And we've seen him. He had a good run at Daytona this year. He was at 16th, and even then he felt like he had a better run going than even that at that time. So I'm sure he feels like there's even more speed in that thing. But he's going to have to get something together to get $75,000 together to get a new engine in there. But, those things can be done. The drivers can't be replaced. And so I'm glad he's okay. And, hopefully, he's doing as well as both Allmendinger and Sawalich are. So, yeah, I mean, again, all 3 races kind of had some similar thread in that element there of being, very competitive races, playoff drivers having problems, and, but at the same time, just having some pretty harrowing situations there on the track at the same time. But, Chase Elliott, your last place finisher today, and that'll be pending the results of post-race inspection, your story later tonight on the Last Car page. And as I saw mentioned in the chat here, too, a lot of mechanical issues, which was very unusual. Seems like you usually see this at the road courses. Nowadays, I guess with this car and it being basically, a GT3 car or whatever, it seems like you don't see as many of those mechanical issues, just something breaking or whatever. But in this one here, the issues that Josh Berry had coming in and out of the garage area, looked like a blown engine for Cody Ware and for Riley Herbst. Alex Bowman dropping a cylinder and just kind of limping around out there too. There was all kinds of that happening in this event this time around. And so that made for a really challenging way for all this played out too. And that filled out a lot of the field. Another thing that was a bummer about the big accident that happened in turn 3 is, of course, it was a battle right pretty much at the front of the field there as they were lapping BJ McLeod there at the time. BJ ended up losing several more laps because of a mechanical issue, according to, I believe it was Colby Evans tweeting about it, talking about some issue with the rear wheels, feeling like there's something going on there with the hubs or something. Checked the car behind the wall, ultimately didn't find anything, sent him back out there, and he ends up unofficially in the race results here, showing him 6 laps down, but still in the 28th spot, so still in the top 30 there. Hopefully they can have some notes that they could work from to get ready for Daytona again next year, and hopefully bounce back from their DNQs they've been having in the 500 in recent years as well. So we'll see what the story is there too. Noah Gragson right up front there with Eric Jones. Gragson gets turned by Jones into Allmendinger, and it was pretty much on from there. Just a rough deal. Reminded me so much of an accident back in 2009 during that famous race where Brad Keselowski won his first Cup Series race and had a big pile up there. They got Mark Martin and several other drivers there too, and indeed Martin was your last place finisher in that one. Another highly touted Hendrick Motorsports driver at the time there at the back of the field too. This was another one where trying to pick a fantasy pick for this one, I was starting to kind of think about like some drivers that would be a real good outside shot of having a good finish here. Riley Herbst came to mind, and indeed there were a couple times he was challenging for the lead there as well. before the engine went south. A heartbreaker for him, but not a last place finish. He still leads the Last Car Cup Series standings going into the last 2 races of the year. He has 4 last place finishes, the only driver with that many. And he could potentially, I believe, be very close to clinching it if he does get another last place run. Well, certainly if he gets another one next week, then yeah, he'd be ahead by 2 with just 1 race left, and that would do it. In this one here, if he got last today, I think it would have been him and Josh Berry battling it out for these last couple ones here. But again, both those drivers having DNFs, but both of them well ahead, actually finishing nose to tail in 32nd and 33rd. Cody Ware was another driver, was hoping they would have a good run. Indeed, we saw him up there a bit in stage 1. Remember back to the Daytona night race when he was leading those laps in that Arby's car. And we'd seen him even back to like 2020, having a shot at a good finish up there. Unfortunately, it looked like something happened with the engine. It looked like there was also some water he spun in on the apron there in turn 1. But regardless, short afternoon for him, finishing back in the 31st spot, although just 28 laps short of the finish there in that case at the same time. Heartbreaker as well for Chris Buescher on a day where all 3 of the RFK racing cars were looking very strong here. Buescher ends up getting turned during the battle there with William Byron up front. It gets hooked into the inside wall. Things are just starting to bubble over at that point. It was a shame that incident happened. I think it would have been really interesting to see where this race would have gone if it stayed green. Larson seemed like he was being very aggressive to stay up there and try to work his way back to the front and was still leading the middle groove. And luckily, he was closing, but not fast enough to get involved in the incident at that time. But clearly, the extra caution laps didn't help, and that was a factor in what happened there at the end. So again, some high drama there at the very end of it. It's going to be interesting to see where all that shakes out. Michael McDowell winning the pole. Congratulations to him again, kind of returning to his super speedway prowess here as well. With the Spire Motorsports effort, the 71, no stranger to winning at Talladega, as Dave Marcus had during his career. But in this case here, McDowell ends up back in the 17th spot, but for how tight the field was, just 573 thousandths between him and the leader. Margin of victory here shown at 145 thousandths between Briscoe and Gilliland. Gilliland with again, fine job. I don't think I touched on him enough there earlier. He was able to kind of get up there in that second groove and really kind of work his way up there. And then when Zane got up there, they could pair up, and it seemed like they were going to be really tough up there. Did a fine job out there. I mean, very nearly get a first-time winner. That would have been kind of interesting to see where that would have factored in with the point standings or whatnot. But regardless, I think that they put on quite the show out there. But again, yeah, solid race. I'm glad it didn't have, the big wrecks weren't too big, so you had a big part of the field that was still out there. Glad we didn't have, although it did finish in overtime, it wasn't multiple attempts at it. We didn't have too much more controversy over running out of fuel, although we did see a few drivers have to come in, like Logano and Blaney and so forth, towards the end of this race as well. Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, no notes, not much there. I mean, it didn't help my fantasy thing, but you know what? No one, that's definitely not a material concern there on this one. It was interesting to see how it played out. And indeed, even before the wreck happened, before Chase Elliott's wreck in turn 3, the last place spot was changing a lot. The very beginning of the race, BJ McLeod ran in the back of Ricky Stenhouse's car coming across the stripe and ended up losing the pack. He drafted up with Casey Mears. And in the past, it's been so often that we've seen cars just break off from the pack and then they're just stranded by themselves. This is very much like what we saw yesterday with Carson Ware in the Xfinity Series race. But in this one here, even if you only had a pack of about 2 cars, you could link back up to the tail end of the field. Indeed, a few laps later, there was about a pack of 7 cars from 34th on back, led by Austin Dillon, and that group got right back up to the leaders and were able to kind of spread out. And so as a result of that, we probably had more passes for last place than just about any race this season. And a lot of times it was just cars that were just spreading out, trying different lines, going side by side, maybe not fully clearing another driver, but just being ahead by those little inches there to kind of work that out at the same time. So pretty exciting there at that time. It was getting to the point there, my Twitter feed wasn't letting me post the images because it's like, you already posted this. It's like, no, this is new. This is something else. I don't know why it was getting threaded through there, but that was probably another situation there at the same time. An interesting mix of what was going on there. But we'll see. I think there's a lot that it's going to be interesting to figure out when we get down to the line here. But indeed, after the, I was going to kind of look at the points here again. Again, Briscoe joining his teammate Denny Hamlin in the championship 4. Christopher Bell now highest ranked among the drivers not locked in, 37 above the bubble here. Could we possibly see 3 of the 4 spots in the playoffs filled by Joe Gibbs Racing? Wasn't too long ago we saw Joe Gibbs on the other side of this, with Ty Gibbs going for the Xfinity Series championship against 3 JR Motorsports cars. Maybe we're going to see something very different this time around here. It could be difficult. We've seen Christopher Bell be good at Martinsville. He won that race that was overshadowed by the Hail Melon. He was trying to pull out something last year's race. Unfortunately got caught with the riding the wall there at the end of it. Not sure what kind of battle we're going to see there at the same time. And Kyle Larson, despite running out of fuel, ends up 36 points above the bubble, still not locked in. But again, could potentially get bumped out by that 1 point. And, this situation there with him running out of fuel didn't help that situation there either. But then behind him, William Byron, 36 out, Logano, 38 out, Blaney, 47 out, and Chase Elliott with the last place finish, 62 out. Just a brutal situation there. And, knowing that at most just one of those 4 are likely going to make their way in, with those gaps being as big as they are. I mean, I know we got stage points to factor in too. It's going to be a rough deal there. But again, it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully we get back to doing full season points again. It won't even have to have this kind of conversation. Just see how a driver's entire body of work was and focus on other races earlier in the year. That's the thing that sucks with Elliott, because again, I think that he has, maybe not had the overall best season, but certainly I would say at least a top 3 season with them up there with Briscoe and with Hamlin. Deserves to be in that same consideration, but that's not the way the system's set up. And, it unfortunately punishes things in the short term here. And so it could very well be the case that the 9 doesn't make it in unless they win next week. So, the story becomes a bit simpler next week. We're not talking about 1 or 2 point gaps here. It's going to be more or less all or nothing at that race next week. And that's a tricky track, especially with this car, which has really struggled at Martinsville lately. We had the different tires last year. We've seen those tires used at other tracks and started seeing that rubber smear on the sides of the cars there and figure out how that's going to work out. I'm not sure what that race is going to look like, to be honest. But hopefully it's going to be competitive enough to find out here at the same time. So, again, congratulations to Chase Briscoe. The picture looking clearer here for Phoenix here in a couple weeks when we do our next trackside coverage. That will be something certainly exciting to follow here at the same time. So, on the show here tonight, I'm going to get into the Xfinity and the Truck Series action here in just a little bit. We'll do some trivia a little bit later in the show. I also do want to talk about the new videos this week, not just my video on Greg Sachs, but also the new NASCAR Man History video I narrated that was on the rear suspension rules that were used on the super speedways in the late 90s. Both of those posted earlier this week, so hopefully you've had a chance to enjoy them. I've seen some people mention them in the chat, so I do appreciate that. Had some more work on since then, just through last night even, on the next episode of 500 Days. That's another one that I've really trying to get across the finish line here. I hope to get the script of that done later this month, if not the first part of next month, and then that'll be much closer to getting it recorded and edited, and I think probably before the end of the year it hopefully should be done. But that's kind of what I'm looking at too. The reason I'm a little hedging my bets on that is it's going to be quite a long episode here. So we'll see how that goes. I know after seeing the Greg Sachs video being almost 2 hours, that's something, but you'll see why. There's definitely a ton of stuff to cover in this one here. And I'm working on what's the best way to present that and get that moving forward. So we'll have that coming up here in a little bit too. So we'll stay tuned on that. Before we get into that, we'll get into Xfinity and the Truck Series races here as well. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, we got 58 people in here. Right on. That's good. I hope you guys still like the lights. We got debuted these last week. I just used one last week. I used the second one today, and I even brought out the little remote control here so I could adjust those along the way. Maybe we'll hopefully everything looks okay, and if it doesn't, make sure to mention it, and we can tweak that on this end too. trying to get everything up to where it needs to be. So, in the Xfinity race, kind of the opposite of the Cup race, at least in terms of the incidents that we had. Certainly, Austin Hill pulling off yet another super speedway win and sweeping Talladega for the season, and flipping the bird to some fans after the race. Certainly does get his share of boos. I know he certainly did in the spring when we were out there and covering the race, and then he had that photo finish caused by freezing the field there at the end that Jeb Burton and his team were extremely upset about. In this race this time around, Jeb Burton involved in the biggest accident from the race and did apologize for it in a tweet earlier today as well. Looked like it was going to be, things just got really hairy really quick in that one. But again, a very competitive race there, even throughout. Reminded me much more of 2003 when you had the big wreck about 3 or 4 laps into that race in the Cup Series, and you still had a good battle at the end. People still able to get big runs, and we saw something very similar to that this time around here. Unfortunately, in this case, Sam Mayer ends up being your last place finisher for the Haas factory team. A disastrous afternoon for that one, and a bit of controversy here too. But first and foremost, it looked like things are going to just kind of move at a more predictable tone initially. You had Carson Ware starting at the back of the field, lost the draft almost immediately. Now, this is interesting, too, because I mentioned in the article, Carson Ware wasn't even really knowing that he was going to be running this race this weekend in the Mike Harmon Racing entry. He was at the very back of the entry list. That car was shown on the list with no driver and no sponsor listed. According to his graphics designer, I believe DB Designs on that one, they were mentioning that the deal came together by late Monday into Tuesday, getting the graphics together, getting the car wrapped, getting it brought down to the track in the smallest hauler in the garage area among the Xfinity Series teams, but getting the team out there and running double duty with the Truck Series as well. Caleb Costner running in the Truck Series race on Friday, and then Carson in Saturday. Unfortunately, again, he lost the draft at the beginning, and on lap 16, he was just getting lapped, or I guess lap 14 into 15, just getting lapped in the tri-oval when this wreck started with Jeb Burton getting a bit of a stack up there behind William Sawalich and Sheldon Creed. At that point there's just nowhere for anybody to go. Burton tried to bail out up high, ended up sweeping up more cars in that incident, and then the wreck just was on from there and ended up being a pretty big mess at that point. Sam Mayer was clipped by Jeremy Clements after he spun off the outside wall. Seemed like they were going to do a pretty good job and get that 41 back out there. Had some pretty substantial nose damage, not nearly as bad as his teammate Sheldon Creed, who absolutely clobbered the outside wall there in that pileup. But Mayer seemed to get him back out there. Unfortunately, during the red flag and afterwards, NASCAR handed out a message there to Mayer's team saying that he had incurred a 2-lap penalty for too many crewmen over the wall during the DVP, and he was held for those 2 laps. And during those 2 laps, apparently the crash clock was still running, and because of that, he actually ran out of time despite returning to the track there and had to pull the car back into the garage area. That's why his race result shows it out by DVP rather than the accident itself. A frustrating situation. Mayer was very outspoken about this in his post-race interview, which at first was completely smothered by background music by the CW broadcast. I don't get why, this many months into the season, they haven't figured out how to balance their audio a little bit. But in this case here, luckily there were other reporters there getting his quotes, including one that very pointedly mentioned the DVP rule. And of course, under the Cup rules, he would have been able to go back to the garage area, get the car fixed, get back out there. Indeed, we saw that very scenario here today with the situation with the 2 and the 43 here as well from the first accident today. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case for him. Hopefully, they'll get revisited next year. I don't know how high that is up on NASCAR's list of priorities, but it would be interesting to find out, that's for sure. But we'll find out if that's going to be the story there at the same time. But Mayer ends up being your last place finisher. Jeremy Clements, Brendan Queen, Ryan Sieg, and Sheldon Creed running at the bottom 5, all of them eliminated after the 15th lap because of that big accident. When that accident happened, of course, Carson Ware got his lap back as a lucky dog. He then lost the lap a second time, got it back a second time at the end of the race, and finished in the 21st spot. Best run that team has had in a couple of years, which is tremendous. It seems like it wasn't that long ago We were talking about the 2020 season on this show, and back when the 74 team was getting some good runs there with Bailey Curry and Kyle Weatherman. And it's been a long slog since then. They've had a lot of DNFs and withdrawals this year, but still plugging away and keeping that team in operation. It's good to see them finally have like some kind of a solid run, and a run where they had the car fully wrapped with the sponsorship on there. I think they did a fine job with that for the Costa Oil Company on board there as well. And again, Carson Ware showing back in the 21st spot. No shortage of drama at the very end of it. While Austin Hill pulled off the victory, there were several underdogs that were absolutely a legitimate threat to pull off this win. Garrett Smithley had an absolutely outstanding middle of a three-wide pack pass, getting up to about third, almost second spot at the very end of this race. Ended up getting bogged down when Leland Honeyman, got clattered around there on the backstretch, and also in that incident did a great job not plowing into him and causing a big accident out there at the same time. Honeyman himself getting back up into the top 5 in this race, despite losing a left front fender in a tangle with Connor Zilic, an incident that ultimately led to Zilic ending his top 5 consecutive top 5 finish streak this year. But regardless, still a remarkable run. Existed entirely between the 2 Talladega races this year. So another exciting measurement of what was accomplished there by that 88 team. But Honeyman was very close to getting up there, restarting towards the front of the event there at the very end. You had Josh Williams up there before he ran out of gas, up to the second spot there for Alpha Prime, and then sneaking his way through this and actually sticking the landing with a great finish out there. Cesar Baccarella there in the 5th spot. I always say Cesar, but I guess it is Cesar Baccarella there for him in the 5th spot there. Fantastic run, career best run, first top 5 finish. This is a driver that doesn't get talked about that much, and I think a lot of people got kind of introduced to him from the interviews after this race. But of course, he's the owner of the Alpha Prime Supplements Company. That was part of the investment into Tommy Joe Martin's Motorsports, which is why it's now become Alpha Prime Racing and running multiple cars. Indeed, the number 5 on top of that was the former Our Motorsports car, which was also absorbed into the team and became a new part-time effort there as well. We usually see Baccarella just running in the super speedways, sometimes also at Homestead in his native Florida. I haven't had a chance to interview him yet, but I saw him at Talladega there when they were having some mechanical issues during that race here. But in this case here, just did a wonderful job up there and had a pretty sharp looking paint scheme, I got to say, too, getting up there in the 5th place finish. So that was a tremendous effort there for him, too. Looking further behind there, his teammate Parker Retzlaff and one of the other Alpha Prime cars getting in the 7th spot. Tommy Joe Martins and Cesar Baccarella are going to be excited about that. Blaine Perkins finishing in the 6th spot, a career best finish for him. Nick Lights finishing right ahead of his teammate Garrett Smithley. Again, mentioning Smithley's charge there at the end. Ends up slipping back to 12th after having to breathe the throttle there at the end. But Nick Lights getting a career best 11th place finish after coming back from a couple of spins. Seemed like every time there was an update on Nick's Twitter feed there, it was something about like tires that had been flat spotted or coming back from a spin or something. But he just stayed in it and kept plugging away, and a great finish, well-deserved there for him as well. Josh Williams back to 14th after running out of fuel. We saw David Starr in the top 10 there for a little bit. He dropped back to the 18th spot. Brennan Poole kind of in a similar situation, a little bit more invisible in this race, but coming back into 19th. Connor Zilic still ends up 23rd after all the damage he had, and finishing back 3 laps down at the checkered flag there too. So again, no shortage of that. And of course, that's the other aspect that always makes Talladega great. You got drivers and teams that you don't usually see, that don't usually get talked about. And not only do they get talked about, but they actually get some good finishes out there. And survival was a big aspect of it. And some of them were towards the back. Baccarella himself had actually surrendered his 25th starting spot and was at the very back of the field. Was around, not necessarily in the 38th spot there at the start. It seemed like Ware took that pretty quickly, but definitely outside the top 30 and was able to kind of climb his way back in there. And again, another show of the speed he had, similar to what we saw today with Casey Mears, seeing the 5 car actually kind of work his way back up there. And, the interval wasn't, too far back. He didn't lose the draft. He didn't lose any laps. just stayed in the thick of it and wasn't involved in the other incidents, of which there were many, and kept things interesting there too. Mason Maggio was up there for a little bit, had some issues there towards the end, dropping back again. A lot of drivers just had their hands in this one in terms of having a good run and having that wreck at the very beginning among the leaders and taking out such really strong cars as, again, the two Haas factory cars. Ryan Sieg eliminated in it, Jordan Anderson, Jeremy Clements, Harrison Burton getting a lot of damage, although Burton came back from that and seemed like he had a pretty good finish in 13th. So a fine recovery there for the AM Racing team. They've had a lot to come back from these last couple of years, but that would be another one at the same time. Yes, indeed, Andrew. Yep. Parker Retzlaff did get in the top 10, finished the 7th spot there. So, yeah, 2 drivers for Alpha Prime there in the top 10. So, kudos to them there as well. Sammy Smith coming back from running out of fuel there, beating the pace car back off of pit road, and then, kind of working his way back up there, finishes back in the 9th spot. And things get interesting on the Xfinity side, too. We had Justin Allgaier punch his ticket to Phoenix, where undoubtedly the defending series champion is going to be tough again. We'll find out what the story is going to be there. At the same time, Austin Hill, of course, already eliminated from the playoffs, but his team's now advanced into the Owners' Championship, which, I'm sure is a feather in the cap of the owners, but I'm not sure if the fans are going to be following that too closely. But Allgaier joins Zilich in the championship battle. Jesse Love, 40 points to the good. Love looked so strong at the beginning. Much like we saw out of him in Las Vegas last week, seemed like he was going to be a factor the rest of the day. Ultimately not the winner this time around, but not for a lack of effort here. Ends up 3rd in points, 40 above the bubble. Carson Kvapil, again, great job of endurance, getting up into the top 5 there at the end and able to capitalize on some bad luck from another couple of drivers. Ends up 11 points to the good ahead of Sammy Smith, 11 points behind. Brandon Jones is 20 points out. Sam Mayer, after his last place run, is 22 behind. And Sheldon Creed, again, after another rough time here, ends up 41 behind. The Haas factory team now in a situation where it's very likely that at most, maybe only one of those cars are going to advance into the championship for a difficult deal for them there at the same time. So we'll see where things turn out there. Sheldon Creed very close to winning Martinsville in the past. Sam Mayer has, back when he was driving for Junior Motorsports. Brandon Jones has things to reconcile with after Ty Gibbs spun him out of the lead there. That track before. Sammy Smith was the spinner in the spring race earlier this year and kind of fell into infamy for his aggression in that particular event. It's anyone's guess how that's going to turn out. I think that's going to be probably just about the race of the weekend. Next week, although the Cup Series race for all of its hype is certainly going to be another factor there at the same time. Speaking of the coverage for the race this weekend, a couple people I'd definitely like to thank. Adam Lemery's posting so many great pictures from the grandstands there. Good memories from our trip back there in the spring. It's good to see other fans out there enjoying the action and following what's happening at the back of the field. I was retweeting several of his pictures on this account here as well, so thank you for those. Steven Toronto as well, working in the infield, getting those great shots of the cars getting towed to the garage area. There was no shortage of debris thrown around in the infield for all 3 races this weekend, and he did a fine job there showing what was happening back there as well. So we'll see what where all the dust settles and who's going to end up where when we get to the championship round here very, very soon. But again, a couple of mechanical issues here too. The Xfinity race, Ryan Ellis knocked out of the event after a cap off a piece of equipment from another car. Went right through his radiator and took him out of the event there back in the 27th position. Rear gear issues for Taylor Gray, had some fluid on the rear TV panel of his car after having to start at the back of the field already, having additional mechanical issues, just having a really difficult stretch run in this season. So we'll see how things turn around for him as well. Let's see here. Daniel Dye looked very strong. It was unfortunate to see him get wrecked there as well. In the same incident with Eric Almirola, Eric with a very serious hit off of turn 2 and Dye hitting just about as hard on the inside wall. Very physical race here too. So Wallach's incident with Dean Thompson, of course, was a freaky situation there on lap 45. I was actually more concerned about Thompson and Sawalich in the immediate aftermath. It seemed like Thompson hit the wall much harder. But again, good to see Sawalich checked and released from a local hospital that he was checked into after Saturday's race. So we'll see if we get some more updates on that throughout this week as well. Connor Mosak's debut, at least for the Viking Motorsports effort, ends up a bit difficult. He gets involved in one of those incidents there and ends up back in the 28th spot there. Just a really, really physical race, and it was much more a matter of survival. And, again, it's so frustrating, though. It always does seem like with some of these small teams, there's always a ceiling they can't seem to quite pierce to get up front. We saw Joey Gase so close to getting a win here. That race that Jesse Love won his first series race, and Gase spun out of fourth place coming to the stripe. Other drivers just kind of in the mix trying to get up there. Again, it just, for whatever reason, Austin Hill seems to have some force field around that 21 car. And especially if he gets up front, and especially even if he doesn't have a teammate or if other people are just around him, he's just too good at it. And he's figured something out at that team. And indeed today we saw a good run out of him again. The result doesn't necessarily show it, but again, was right up there, working the outside lane, getting that 33 car up there. Wasn't quite meant to be this time, but in future Cup starts, he may well be a force to be reckoned with for sure. Let's see here. Now we get into the Truck Series race, and what was an absolutely awful play-by-play by the Fox Sports 1 group. They sounded more disinterested than ever in this one, and it's a broken record every week on this show, but let's break this one down here. This Truck Series race had everything going for it. You got plant potential. I mean, everything that all these systems have put in place. It's like, okay, you have the playoffs. Not a big fan of them, but they are what they are. They're in place. And you got a playoff contender, Grant Enfinger, that's involved in an early wreck, and he's now in a difficult situation next week. You had Norm Benning's truck catching on fire and him getting, thankfully, get out of the truck very quickly. Serious situation there as well. You had leaders getting spun out when Ben Rhodes was up there. And Luke Fenhouse having a good run out there, but just a little inexperience, getting a little bit of an incident there that spun each other out. And on top of all of this, Giovanni Ruggiero finally breaks through and gets his first career win. I kept waiting for Tanner Gray to get to victory lane earlier in the Tricon Garage Group. But old Ruggiero has been just impressive right from the word go this season. And much like Sam Mayer in the Xfinity Series, just, you just kind of wait for him to kind of break through and for this driver team combination to get their first win, but finally does it this time. Leads 37 of the 90 laps. Felt like he led even more of it than that. And beating the dominant Corey Heim there at the finish. Tremendous job out there. But yeah, the booth sounded like they had just somewhere else to be. They just didn't sound very interested in what was happening. And I don't get it. All this stuff is in there supposedly to make the sport more interesting and more exciting. And there is a lot that's happening, and they just keep telling us, it's like, oh, what a great race. This is good. It's like, well, you got to sound interested. And I don't care. I mean, if you're in a situation that you're reporting on this remotely, and I'm sure they were from what they were showing, you still got to work with it. I mean, my goodness, it's a performance, really. But I don't know, but that's where we are with this. And it's unfortunate because, there's some other great runs throughout this field here. J.J. Yaley, I mean, this was going to be so exciting coming into this race by itself. One of the best runs he's had in any of these series for a number of years. We just saw him driving for the New York Racing Team just recently there in the Cup Series side. Gets in the number 7 truck that Connor Mosak has been running just recently. Not just Mosak, but Connor Zilich, rather. But Yaley looked really strong, out there and trying to challenge for the lead. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. Ends up back in the 13th spot there at the finish. Corey LaJoy also looking good for the Spire team in the number 77 up to the 8th spot. Dawson Sutton in a 4th place finish. This kid always just seems to kind of jump up there out of nowhere. He kind of did the same thing at Texas earlier this season. A fine job from them as well. I mean, there's so much that you can cover in this series, and there's so much potential there. And, on top of this, you just had bizarre stuff happening. You had an incident for Daniel Hemrick and Tony Breitinger running in the back of him. You had mechanical issues for Caleb Costner. Again, little bits of everything that's happening in these races, but it's really, really unfortunate. And it's another thing that nobody seems, everybody hyperventilates about the TV ratings and how many people are watching and so forth. But it's always ignored that, what kind of show are you putting on? They're focusing on the racing, but that play-by-play, I'll keep hammering on it every week, is just so important. It's so important to present what the story is, to be engaged with it. That's what some of the best broadcasts have done, is you can tell that they're actually enjoying it. Like they actually want to see what's happening, and they actually want to share that moment with you and feel the excitement that people have at home. And this race had it all. This race had it all. We could talk about Ruggiero's season to this point, and other times he's been very close to pulling off a win. Certainly in the context of his teammate Corey Heim being even more dominant than he's ever been in the Truck Series, and just an unstoppable freight train towards a championship that he's going to try to just win in convincing fashion. But who knows what's going to happen there too. That element too. Lane Riggs coming back from some damage in an incident, I believe, with Connor Mosack in this one. Pushed into the door of his truck, and it's like, oh God, it's going to be the same situation that it was at the Roval, where he had the first corner incident, and Heim recovered from it, and Riggs didn't because he had suspension issues. It's like, is this going to happen again? But Riggs did a fine job recovering from that. Same for the front row team there with him, coming back to finish fifth. His teammate, unfortunately, gets involved in the first incident. Chandler Smith gets in the back of Grant Enfinger, spins him off the corner, and Enfinger ends up with his first last place finish in the Truck Series since, I believe, 2016. I think that was the one that was 2012, going back to the return to Rockingham. I think that was a different situation there as well. So, yeah, kind of a rare situation for these guys at the same time. Just pulling up my stats here at the same time. 2012 for Enfinger. I had somebody that was 2016. Oh, I think that was when it was Ben Rhodes earlier. I think that was his first since 2016. But Enfinger's first since, the 2012 race at Rockingham, the first time the track returned to the circuit on April 15th of 2012. So, tremendous kind of situation there at the same time. But an unusual deal. I hate it for Enfinger, especially as he was a defending winner of this race. But it's Martinsville is a track that he could very well pull off. I mean, he's won at Milwaukee. He's good at the short tracks. He's good at kind of developing his own career. But we're going to find out and see if he can have enough to really kind of get himself up there. I mean, it was so good to see him almost win the championship in the last race for GMS Racing. Came so close to catching Ben Rhodes in that very chaotic championship a couple of years ago. But we'll see if that's going to be kind of a similar story this time around. But again, glad to see Norm Benning okay. Hopefully they can piece that truck back together. He's shown in the 32nd spot there. Enfinger, Costner, Hemrick, Breidinger, and Benning, your bottom five in that race there at the same time. So a little bit different here too. Yeah, Corey Heim, I'm seeing your comment, Ryan. Yep, Corey Heim and Connor Zillett should be having like 2006 Kevin Harvick Busch Series seasons, the old format. And that's fine, and that's the frustrating part. It shouldn't even be a question that Corey Heim is going to win the Truck Series championship or that Connor Zillett is going to win it at the Xfinity one. I think they said even with Zillett would pretty much have clinched it already at this point under the old system. I don't know if that's true or not, but basically be pretty much right on the button here with 2 races to go. The excellence should be rewarded. And I know that sounds strange coming from somebody that follows the back of the field and looks at a system where it's based on the most last place finishes. But even that one's a full season championship. I wouldn't imagine adding some extra, rules and conditions in there. I mean, what's the point of that? But I was kind of chewing this over earlier this weekend, and I might do a video on this more long form to kind of discuss this further. The people that came up with the playoffs and the the chase and all the other incarnations back to 2004, I believe their heart was in the right place. I believe that they just wanted to make a good thing even better. They wanted it wasn't like they were, I don't feel like they were looking at the sport the way it was and said, oh, this isn't good enough, it needs to be made better. I think they were saying like, okay, wow, this thing is really popular. The fans love it. Let's make it even better for them. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if we find out something more in the lawsuit or something that maybe changes that around, that may change my opinion. But just from what I'm seeing here, I sense, from, having heard from some of these people, and talking with some of them, haven't talked to too many in the higher ups, but again, I can't help but think back to, talking with, Steve Phelps back at Talladega. He didn't have to talk to me, and just asking him about this rules situation. And, but he did, and I'll give the person some credit. And I know more discovery has shown up in the lawsuit here, some messages from Steve O'Donnell and others there. Yeah, I think they were trying to make it better. Now, again, the fact that it's stuck around this long, it might just be easier just to kind of just make more changes to it, rather than acknowledge, an underlying issue with the system. And we've seen this out of NASCAR before, because we know that because of today's race, for example. Restrictor plate racing goes back all the way to 1988, if not even further, in other tracks and other years before that. But in terms of regular use on the super speedway since then. And then we've seen the body styles of the cars change. We've seen the driving approach change. We've seen the expectations for teams and what gets torn up at the racetrack change in that same time. This is very much a very similar concern to the next episode of 500 Days, which is going to cover the 2001 spring race at Talladega. Is going to be a big part of that. And some of this came up in my research here as well. Again, I think that the trend is usually like, okay, let's try to come up with a solution that is going to be the best way to kind of address this. And then other stuff gets built up on it. We don't usually see things go backwards. And not in the same, not going backwards. I don't like the way they put that, because, it's acknowledging something that worked in the past. Whenever they bring up backwards in the modern discussion, this intransigence about like saying, okay, well, we don't want to, take the sport backwards or take the sport back to something else, because then the current group, I guess this is the big difference. The group that brought in the chase and stuff at the beginning, even with Brian France and so forth, I think they did want to make something that was already good, something they enjoyed, making it even better. The group that's there now, that's defending the system and doesn't want to go to the old system, I don't think they have that same altruism there. And again, we talked about this on the show before, where it's very hard to have a debate about it. You even hear it on some of the promos that's played over the radio and saying like, well, other sports have playoffs, I guess we have to have them. And look, we do have them. But, it's now been like, more than a generation that we've had this system. And you have enough people that are involved in the sport now, including the drivers, that don't remember what it was like before that time. I mean, do we really even have any drivers, that raced in that period? I guess Casey Mears is probably the only guy in the field today, that raced under the Winston Cup point system there, back when he drove for, back when that was his rookie season, driving for Ganassi back then. And that's the tricky part there too. So again, that might be something I go more into on the channel down the line, but I think that's kind of another situation with that too. But I do hope we get back to that. And the rumors indicating, maybe, we'll hear about this after Phoenix. How soon after Phoenix, they decide this, we're going to find out. But we'll see what the situation is there too. This kind of dovetails into the videos this week, and I guess we'll jump into that there too. And I'll jump into super chats and so forth along the way. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Oh gosh, I lost so many viewers during that. I guess I don't know, getting too far afield of this here, but that's okay. We'll just we'll plow through here. Thank you so much, everyone that was checking out the video this week on Greg Sachs that I posted. As you can see, it ended up being a much larger project, much longer project than I anticipated. I actually started working on that script, believe it or not, like just about a year ago, honestly, probably about like November, December. I was doing it kind of over the off season, getting the articles together, getting kind of the script going, and realizing that, yeah, it's probably going to have to be a year by year thing because of how many different teams he drove for. It could conceivably have been a way shorter episode, just focusing on 2004 and what happened after. But I don't feel like that would have gained enough respect for what career he had up to that point without just going into it. And a lot of videos on my channel kind of do that, where I'm talking about, these drivers and like, how they got their start and how they moved through the sport and what team changes they made. And that's always something that's fascinating to me. And it's also something that Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives has been tremendously helpful with, kind of going year by year. Because I learn a lot from the pictures too, whether it's different sponsors. Like there's one in the Greg Sachs video I think that was interesting, where he was sponsored by Slim Fast, but towards the end of the season with that Hendrick-Newman deal, that Newman-Hendrick deal, before it fell apart, in the Atlanta race, he was sponsored by a company called Real Fruit Refresher. And I did some research on that, and I found out it was another product that Slim Fast had back then, and they were promoting it in that last race. Unfortunately, it ended up being the last time that either of those brands were on that car, and that team ended up shutting down. And again, NASCAR Man History did already a very interesting video discussing about where that fit in with Hendrick's history. But Greg Sachs is just one of these drivers that, a lot of times you hear about a guy like Jeff Gordon that came in later, of course, driving for Hendrick and driving pretty much the same team his entire career. But that's not common, and Casey Mears today is another good example of drivers that went from team to team trying to find the right combination, even multiple consecutive years of driving for multiple consecutive different teams. And there's a couple different ways to look at a career like that, especially a guy like Sachs that only won one race, and that race was very early in his career. You could look at that and say, oh, well, this guy wasn't very good. He wasn't very competitive. He couldn't stick, with any one ride or anything. But then you got to really look at the fuller context of it, and you understand, who these teams were, where they were, in that particular season that he signed with them too. That was the thing that I felt was really challenging with the script, is each time I would introduce these new teams and kind of say how many years they were into their program and how successful they had been. And for example, when he joined Buddy Baker's team in late 88 into 89, this was a few years into that organization. They hadn't won yet. But Sachs had some good runs. He had that good run at Darlington. Next week at Bristol, he led the most laps, and just very competitive there. And ultimately that leading to a couple other rides that got him the Hendrick deal. It's just really interesting to see what he was able to bring about. And I think a big part of that was he was just a hell of a qualifier. He may have had a lot of DNFs, again, almost 50% of his starts, but very few DNQs. Except for a couple of seasons where the teams were really struggling. And again, those were probably more measures of, him as a control group, of just the struggles those teams had. There were some teams that, really did have a lot of DNQs, and some had very few, if any. When he was in good equipment, he could really get it done there. And I think to understand all of that, you really had to go back to the very beginning of his career, running the figure eight tracks, and perfecting that, and running the modifieds and excelling in those series and being a winning and championship level driver in that, to understand that. I mean, this is something that does get forgotten a lot in the Cup Series in particular, is that these drivers, they are championship caliber drivers. Generally, you're going to have some pay drivers here and there, but more often than not, they are the best at whatever series they've run before. BJ McLeod was a fantastic short track driver before getting into these circuits these days, and still has that connection, down in Florida. So, again, it's something that you look at here. These guys didn't just back into these rides. And Sachs was very much that case. I mean, again, had to work that demanding job there in his parents' farm, and trying to kind of scrape his way up there. Kind of similar to what we heard about Steve Grissom in the Cartoon Network video. Again, it's a tremendous career. I would have loved to interview him for the video. Unfortunately, didn't get that opportunity. If I do, I'll do a follow-up, and we'll probably do an interview. And I'm sure there's other stuff that I've just scratched the surface on in this video. But I very much enjoyed putting it together. I think that Sachs is a very interesting driver. I think that he really seemed to understand the times that he was in. And certainly being the stunt coordinator in Days of Thunder was a perfect opportunity for him. He was very much a Hollywood kind of personality, even though he was born in New York and very much the East Coast personality. He would have fit in just fine down in LA, wearing the sunglasses all the time, the slick back hair, and the very personable interviews. And even in a situation where, yeah, he had a very devastating accident, and he had many just absolutely brutal wrecks through his career, tough as nails, tough as hell. You know, between the wrecks at the flip at Pocono in 1989, that clobbering, that stopped car at Rockingham in 95 after he'd already strained his neck in the clash. There's people pointing out in the comments that he broke his seat. You can see the seat moved forward in the car after that one. And then, of course, the accident in 1998 that set him actually off the track for several years, where I heard from somebody that said there was an acute, it could have been potential Baszler skull situation, like it had been with Stanley Smith and, of course, Dale Earnhardt and Kenny Irwin years later, but thankfully not serious enough that he could, regain the feeling in his body and get back into the sport, and then ran several more races all the way up to 2010, driving for Junior Motorsports, the same Junior Motorsports we're talking about today here in the Xfinity Series. Remarkable deal there. And I really wanted to kind of give that as much attention as possible and be as, as comprehensive as possible. I feel like his story deserved that in this. So it may be a little different from the Field Fillers episodes to this point, where, the 2004 season is much more central. And indeed, this is kind of where I had the same issue with the Stanton Barrett one. I know with what I mentioned at the end of the video, where I'm talking about now we're going to go kind of from teams that did qualify for 2004 races to ones that didn't, and other new teams that kind of tried to come together, maybe didn't quite come together. That's going to be kind of in the next episode. Of course, I'm still getting a lot of questions about the Stanton Barrett episode, and I haven't forgotten about that. I may have to put something in there with this next one. I've kind of moved forward with the series, anticipating that I'm going to go back one day, drop it in there, and it'll just be part of that series and complete that at that point. But as I've always said, I'm still in the works of trying to get an interview with Stanton to get his version of the story. The last time I spoke with him, we had been going over the script, and he's like, oh, wow, it's like, I would rather we talk about this. Let's talk about this and this. And it's like, well, heck, man, I didn't know that. You didn't mention it in our interview before. I would have put it in there. And we were going to set something up, but that man is probably the busiest guy on the face of this earth. He is so hard to get a hold of there. It was hard to get that first interview. But I think the best way that probably is going to happen, and I'm hopeful of this because, I still cover the road course races, especially at Sears Point, is that he's going to be entered in one of these races and I can just do a face-to-face. And I think even if I just get one interview from that, I think we can get the script at least to a point where, it would cover more of those topics there. But we'll see. And there's a lot there because I think in that one, the challenge was, it's not just on Stanton Barrett himself. It's also about his father. And when I was doing the script on that, his father had tremendous accomplishments in the same fields as both a race car driver and a stunt performer there. And and much like the Derek Cope story, when I did the book on that, there's so much more that he's still doing and still active in. And it may well be that, finishing the script and getting a video together, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that's just not in there because he's still working. So that man's not retiring anytime soon. And it sounds like his father is doing okay and been very busy as well, at least last time I spoke with him there. So that's something I'd love to do. We'll see where that comes up. It may well be after doing this Greg Sachs video, it's kind of made me look at the Stanton Barrett one a little differently. And maybe there's just too much there. Maybe a video is not the best way to approach it. I'd like to do a video and show a lot of footage from these races in his career. And of course, the pictures that Brian Hallman's provided there. Maybe it becomes something else. Maybe it becomes an article. Maybe it becomes a book. Maybe it becomes something else on that. That may well be the case, but we'll see. But I'm not going to know that until we get the next interview on that and get that together. But I haven't forgotten about it, and I'd certainly like to have it in there. I think the thing that's interesting, at least from the last conversation I had with him, it sounded like the 2004 team that he drove for was a very small blip on his radar in terms of his career, and there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I did get the good fortune. I was very fortunate to be able to talk with one of the team owners that had operated the number 94 car. It was called WW Motorsports, and I talked with one of the team owners at the time, and unfortunately he's since passed away, but thankfully I was able to talk with him, and he was very entertaining on that, and a lot of the video is going to kind of, a lot of the content there is something I'd like to be able to put into that. yeah, we'll see what happens there on that end. But it's still out there, and the Field Filler series is still going, and there's gonna be more coming up here at the same time. So we'll find out what the story is going to be there too. So very, very close on that. Let's see here. And also on the same subject, I mentioned I was going to talk about NASCAR Man Histories video. Yeah, really interesting one, isn't it? Hopefully you guys have had a chance to check that one out over again at NASCAR Man Histories channel here on YouTube. Something about those late 90s super speedway qualifying sessions. And I've gone through a lot of those. I remember watching them live, and yeah, it was always strange. They always had those soft rear springs, and they would just have the car practically dragging on the track. And, you talk about today with the under tray and the diffuser strakes, and, how temperamental the air is circulating with these cars. But back then, that was really the challenge, and you look at the early 90s and Greg Sachs era, where they would just hammer those spoilers flat and just hope the car could, driver can just hang on to it. But then you have much later on, it's just about getting the whole rear of the car down. And this is something I think is one of NASCAR Man's strengths in his videos, is he's very comprehensive on the technical side of it there. That's something I usually don't look at too much unless it's a really big part of the story that I'm talking about. Yeah, I appreciated him going into that and kind of going into the whole controversy, because it was. And the 2000 season in that 2000 Daytona 500, which ultimately got us a super speedway package that led to Dale Earnhardt's last win. That was very much a part of that response that NASCAR had to these rules at the time. And I saw some really interesting comments about it too, talking about how when these rules were put in place, the teams had to be more creative about, getting that same result from manipulating other aspects of the car. And, maybe aspects that, to an observer wouldn't be quite as blatant as seeing like, hey, why is the rear of this car like practically dragging the ground? Like the rear wheels are tucked up under the fenders. I remember when, there's some die-cast cars that get made by Racing Champions around that time, and maybe the axle would slip out of the little notch or something, and they would sit like that too, where like the wheels are under the fender there too. I guess Hot Wheels kind of the same problem too. But yeah, that was kind of a different deal there at the same time. So yeah, that was really interesting. So I appreciated him the opportunity to narrate his video there, and hopefully you enjoyed checking that out at the same time. So that's been up on his channel. Alrighty. I feel like I blitzed through this a little bit too fast. Oh no, we're over an hour on here. Okay, gotcha. Let's do some trivia questions here, and I'll jump into. I saw a super chat pop up here, so I want to make sure to get into that too. But we'll do that, and let's see. Alrighty. Whoop. Okay. So again, we'll bring out the late 90s Trivial Pursuit deal here, and go ahead and mention in the chat which of these categories you'd like, and we'll do a few questions here to wrap up on the show here again. Categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Once again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. I feel like I skipped some other things, so go ahead and mention in the chat if there's anything else that I glazed over here that was a big story from this week. Let me see what I got here. Okay, no, not that one. Yeah, we covered that. Okay, nope, covered that one too. Okay, good. I'm glad I made note of that at the same time. I touched on this last week, I think, when it was first announced. My goodness, congratulations have to be made to Ryan Vargas for winning an overall event championship in his first Monster Jam start. My goodness. For those of you who don't know, there was news a couple weeks ago that Ryan Vargas, who as a kid had some pictures taken with the El Toro Loco monster truck, with his family, got the opportunity to drive in a few races here at the end of this season. And he won his first event championship just this past week there. I guess he's been doing a lot of working with the team and so forth on, his repertoire out there. And, my brother was asking, like, how do you win at monster trucks? It's like, dude, he found a way to do it. Hoisted the trophy and everything. So congratulations to him on that. Ryan has had such a diverse career to this point. Of course, driving in the Xfinity series and, working back with JD Motorsports there and other organizations. He's been overseas driving the Whelen Euro series and now doing the monster trucks where, pretty much him and Camden Murphy, who ran in Nemco Motorsports Truck Series entry a few years ago, pretty much the only drivers that have been in both those disciplines, at least in recent years. So just tremendous. So congratulations to Ryan there for him on that. I think that's tremendous. There was just posts about that midway through, I believe yesterday's race was the news breaking on that. So very exciting as well. Another thing I'm looking at for next year, there was some other news this week. Not really, I guess, news. It was more of a clarification about the San Diego Coronado base NASCAR race next year. Now, they did indicate at the very beginning that there was, they were going to just have the Truck Series race be for members of the armed forces and people living on the Coronado Island area. And they did seem to indicate that at the beginning, but I had no idea where, and I still really don't understand where that fits in with the media side of it or anything. I don't, they want to do something, for the military members. I think that's the least they can do probably for, being able to have the race on the base to begin with, especially if it's an active base. And I understand the protocol, comparing it to an air show where, they had, they do things with the service members there on Friday, and then civilians usually there on the weekends. And I'm absolutely a civilian in that regard there too. Again, it's a little disappointing as to not having any access to the Truck Series race. I don't know how they're going to work that out. I was hoping to bring Lastbro down there. We're still trying to figure that out. I don't know if we just use Friday as a travel day to get down there or not. I was kind of thinking maybe they're going to have a practice session, and because they've advertised it as a triple header weekend. And I know they're only selling tickets for the 2 days. I know we did the reservation to reserve a place to order a ticket. The person I talked to didn't seem to know anything about the Friday arrangement. He just said, yeah, tickets are Saturday and Sunday. It's like, well, what about Friday? And it's like, he didn't know anything about it. So hopefully, there's more. I appreciate Bob Pockris taking that on and kind of giving more clarification of it. I have no idea how that's going to work out. I still feel like regardless of what the media access is going to be to it or the fan access is going to be to it, I still feel like it's an event that's worth covering. I don't know if they're going to do it again after this next year, so I kind of hate to miss out on it, especially if it's going to be right around the 250th anniversary here. So we'll see. I'm exploring a few different options here. And I'm sure everybody else is about, figuring out a way to cover that there. But at the very least, I think it's going to be interesting for the Xfinity series and the Cup series that weekend. And we'll do some last place coverage out there. And just got to take in what it is. Certainly living here in California, I think it would be great to be able to support the event as is on there. But, just want to make sure I don't want to step on any toes or anything like that. And we'll, if this is the way they've set it up, this is the way they've set it up. So, I just want to make sure that they're being clear about that and, what to do and not to do, because I certainly don't want to be going this direction or that direction or taking a picture of this when you shouldn't be doing that. As long as they make that clear, great. I'm not here to mess anybody up there, but I do want to be able to cover the event, and we'll find out how much of it we'll be able to cover. And I think we'll figure that out at the same time. Oh, no tires, just gas. Yeah, about IndyCar. Yeah, that'd be something. I almost was looking at that spring race where the spring race at Phoenix is going to be paired with IndyCar. I've done some IndyCar stuff before. Remember, they used to have the championship race at Sears Point, and I did that a few times. I don't follow it quite as closely. And, of course, nowadays, our William Saki actually covers IndyCar for our last car articles there. If we did that, I'd probably, consider having him do that, because they'd be able to actually interact with these drivers directly and use that experience there. Maybe that'll be something we'll look into. We haven't really, worked something out beyond that. But yeah, we'll find out about that. I'd like to kind of go to IndyCar as a fan, probably. I haven't done the Indy 500 yet. Certainly would like to do that one of these days. We'll see. But we'll find out what the story is going to be on that. Let's see. I didn't mention the Truck Series thing. Welcome back, Frankie Muniz, as well. Glad he got back into the truck series here after his broken wrist earlier. Hopefully we'll see him at Phoenix for his home race in a couple of weeks, so that'll be good. But yeah, we'll find out what the story is from there. We know we're going to hear about Norm Benning this next week at Martinsville. He was mentioning he was going to run back that race. So that's good to hear at the same time. Let's see. Nope, I think that's about it on that one. Okay. No, I think that's about all the notes I had. Okay. Alrighty. Which category do we have here for the trivia section here? It's almost been 2 months since IndyCar last race. Yeah, it's weird when the everything kind of works out that way, but yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, Ryan Moore, a senior comment there about, the 2000 qualifying session. Kudos. I think Dave W. posted that one there, the actual live broadcast where it was delayed so late in the day and they barely had any lights out there. And yeah, Talladega gets very dark at night. We were back out there in the spring. That's for sure. You get a little bit of that overhead there too. But yeah, kind of a different situation. Alrighty. Let's see. I'll do the super chat here while go ahead. If somebody could total up who has the most for whichever category here too. Do we have any word on inspection as well? I didn't see anything. I'll check that. Let's see. Nope, this is still unofficial. Wow, it shows Cindric still running under power. So yeah, he was several laps down, but actually finished the race on track. So kudos to him, climbing out of the bottom five, getting past Eric Jones. Jones ended up parking the car again after getting a few laps ahead of the drivers that wrecked. So kudos there. A lot of lap leaders, my goodness. I mean, it certainly felt that way. I don't see a call on inspection yet, so yeah, there's that. Alrighty. All right. Yeah, Vargas just tweeting again an hour ago there. He had just completing his weekend run there. Today's event didn't go quite as well there, but again, multiple him tweeting here just an hour ago from Ryan Vargas, multiple competition podiums and an overall event championship. So stoked. Okay, excellent. Excellent news. All right. Oh, yes, let me get to this here too. Beast of Metal, though, thank you for your super chat here for $9.62. Thank you very much. Worth noting that per Iceberg's Latford post, Elliott was 17 points ahead of Larson for third. That will surely change after today. So 17 points ahead of Larson for third in the Latford point system. Yeah, again, just shows how consistent he's been this year. And, you know, that measures up. Just seems like he's been like right up there, at least being able to contend in that way. But yeah, man, that's going to be tough. Looking at the rest of your post here, the whole trend is vaguely reminiscent of Jeff Gordon's meltdown in the summer of 2003. And yes, under this system, a win negates everything. But what does that say about the knockouts? Again, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's just needless complication. Again, I think the people that came up with it meant well, but it was a wrong turn. It was a wrong turn. And then certainly the stuff that was bolted onto it just became so ponderous that I think it is, and I think it has been isolating to fans. I think it's too if it's too complicated for regular fans, it's gonna be way too complicated for getting anybody new into the sport. And I don't feel like NASCAR's ever been fully understanding of that. I think they've they've overestimated that a little bit. They think it makes it more intriguing. They think it makes it more interesting. It's like, no, sometimes complicated is just too complicated. Like, try to keep things a little bit simpler. And it sounds like we're heading towards something that maybe is going to be towards that direction, but we'll find out if that's going to be actually the case or not. I'm a little discoordinated here. I've tried having this chair I'm in is in a recliner, and I try to put a little extra support back there to kind of move me closer to the camera, but it's also moved me past the other peripherals I'm working with. So bear with me, folks. I'm still trying to kind of get everything here set up a little better, but I think we're on the right track to getting everything where it needs to be here. But we'll find out if that'll be the case. Do you guys like my shirt? I brought this bad boy out here too. I picked this up. This is Rick Wilson and his 1993 STP Pontiac. Petty +1, when they briefly ran the number 44, and the 43 did not run for the 1993 season. And Rick Wilson was driving for that team, had a really difficult year. I think I got mentioned in a couple of my videos, including talking about Jimmy Hensley in the After Allen video. But the 44 team really had a lot of struggles that year and continued. And then the next year had a lot of struggles qualifying for races with Wally Dallenbach Jr. driving. And, kind of a difficult, that's a story in its own right, really, of what was happening after the 1992 Fan Appreciation Tour. But yeah, I always liked this paint scheme. I thought it was pretty sharp. I picked up a couple die casts of this one. I got a 43rd scale of it around somewhere. But yeah, I found this shirt just a while back, and I wasn't sure when the best race was for it, but I was like, Talladega. It kind of looks like a super speedway car. It's got the drop snout look there, kind of the super speedway nose on it. So I figured that would be a pretty cool one to go with. But again, thank you for your super chat there, Beast of Metal. It does, yeah. I mean, it shows just, how an overall championship season, it really can measure, how good somebody's been doing all year, and indeed, that's the thing that's been kind of curious about this. In recent years, it seems like the regular season champion was getting slightly more attention. And that's just too many cooks in the kitchen. You got a regular season champion, you got guys winning to advance, you got knockouts, you got this, you got that, and then you have another championship at the end, the actual championship, where it's winning a best of four. And it's just too much. It's just too much. And it's each one of those steps is just divorced that much further from it. And I'm not going to go too much further down that road because I've said it enough times on this show, but I'll be very curious where we're going from here. Because I don't know. I don't know any more than you guys do on that. So we'll find out. Yeah, DNFs were absolutely critical, Marcus. And see, again, in the sport today where you're able to work on the car at least, and then, there's some restrictions there in the Cup Series. Imagine how much more of a mad thrash it's going to be to try to get those cars out quicker and clear the crash clock and everything. I mean, that's going to take on a massive, massive role in this if we get a full season championship. So we'll see what the deal will be. But yeah. Nothing on post-race tech. Okay. Seeing the comments here too. Yeah, can't believe they got all three races in. Can't believe they got all three races to finish under green too. I mean, that's another thing that made this so enjoyable in general here. I mean, it's good to have a competition where you can actually get to the finish line and not have another one of those freeze the field things. Seeing that live at Talladega in the spring for the Xfinity race was so disappointing because it just needlessly messes things up. And I just recalled, yeah, it was like that in the ARCA race too. The ARCA race had a freeze the field thing, and it was like Lawless Allen and Thad Moffitt, and it came down to that. And then the Cup Series race, it finished under green, but then you had two of like the top four finishers get disqualified. So it's just a messy deal. I don't know. I mean, it's probably gonna be a while, probably after the show here, that we're gonna get a call on inspection, but we'll see. If it gets in the meantime, we'll see. But we'll do what we got here. Pits, wild card. Wild card, the leading category. That's what I'm seeing here. Yeah. No, without overtime, Byron looked good. He was setting up kind of like he does at Daytona every time, and he gets just the right place at the right time. And this time it just wasn't quite it. And they bunched up on him and spun him out, just like they did with Joey Gase. Alrighty. So, yeah, it's a little better with with the two lights. I can see a little better on this thing. You got the, I think I just had one right behind the light last week on our Las Vegas show, but now I got them kind of bracketed here, and we'll see. I'll play around with that too in between this, but let me read the first question off here. First question here, folks. What NASCAR Busch Series ace was first to win $1 million in a year? Let me read it again. What NASCAR Busch Series ace was first to win $1 million in a year? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. What NASCAR Busch Series ace was the first to win $1 million in a year? Let me play around with this here in the meantime, too. What do we got? So we got the little remote here for the lights. We try not to turn them off, but let's see. Does this... Oh, it's not even on. Let's turn it on. Alrighty. Oh, that doesn't do anything. What does that do? Here. Okay, that's brighter. We see what that. I'm just gonna see what that looks like on screen while I'm here. So that's, I was at 20. There's 50. Wow, man, that really lights things up. Yeah, I don't know if that's any better. That's awfully bright, man. I can't look up at that. That's 72, 75. I think 100 might be too much. Yeah, about the color. So I can't punch in a number on this thing. The question again is, what Busch Series ace was the first to win $1 million in a year? Or in a season. See, now this looks too dark. It's weird. Maybe 35. Maybe that would do it. And the color. Yeah, let's try that. See, I'm not wearing makeup or anything, so I know we were talking about this on last week's show. Just kind of looking. I'm looking this way, camera left or camera right here, because that's where my screen is. See, and it doesn't help that I'm colorblind, so that makes it a little tricky to kind of look at too. Yeah. Better or worse? Oh, we have a call on tech? Okay, hang on. We'll get that. Let me cue this back. I think the warmer tone is probably better. Let's try that. I'll turn this off for now. Okay. Let's bring that back over into front row center. There it is. Yes, 1 minute ago, Bob Parker's Cup Tech is complete. No issues. Chase Briscoe is the winner. So that means Chase Elliott is the last place finisher, and we do have a massive gulf between the drivers that are locked in, or the drivers that are above the cut line and the drivers below the cut line. So that will be very interesting at Martinsville for sure. So we will find out. But it will be Chase Elliott with his second last place finish of the year. That will not be the lead in the NASCAR Cup Series Championship. That's still held by Riley Herbst, who has 4. Coming into 2 races to go, that is a 1 finish lead over Josh Berry and a couple other drivers with 3. So, what NASCAR Busch Series ace was first to win $1 million in a year? The answer is Randy LaJoie. Randy LaJoie. A couple of you got that. Let's see. See, even this arm, I got to just rearrange everything here. Okay, let's see. This arm's kind of the way of the screen. Let's bring the screen here. What we got? Mark Martin, Sam Ard. Mark Martin's like Beast of Metal. Looks like you were probably the first one to get Randy LaJoy. Charles Peterson Jr. and No Tires, Just Gas. Yeah, Chase is bookending the field today. Good point, Paper. Good point, Paper. Banjo 64. Alrighty. Oh, here we go. Here's a good question. What movie was thinly based on the rivalry of Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner? We're looking for a name of a movie. What movie was thinly based on the rivalry of Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner? Yeah, tricky ones. We're doing a wild card here, by the way. It looked like that was the leading category. Yeah, I agree, Beast of Metal. It is ambiguous phrasing. It just says, yeah, Busch Series Ace. It must be because of the character limit. I mean, it does 2 screens worth of text, but I haven't seen one do more than that. What movie was thinly based on the rivalry of Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner? That is the question. Oh, goodness. I'm just looking at this picture of Eric Jones's car that Austin Pollock tweeted on earlier. Kind of like what we saw out of, what was it, Justin Haley at New Hampshire with the nose of the car taken off. Wow. Same deal there with Jones. It didn't seem like he had that much nose damage, but yeah. Let's see here. It's good. David Gilliland was there to see Todd there with a runner-up finish, so good for him. That's exciting. It was a great picture of one of Derek Cope's first race cars here on NC Mark's account. Alrighty. One more time here. What movie was thinly based on the rivalry of Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner? Maybe I need to have this higher. Maybe that's it. Maybe this is too low. You can try this. Yeah, if I have it higher, what does that look like on screen? It's not bad. It's not bad. I can see the shirt better. Again, I'm just glad it's leaned forward a bit better. When I was doing this before, I just looked slumped back, like I'm, like I don't get out of this chair, and I don't want to look like that. So, let's see. Here it is. What movie was thinly based on the rivalry of Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner? The answer is Stroker Ace. Stroker Ace. Did anybody guess that? Everybody seemed like they did Days of Thunder. No, No Tires Just Gas guessed Stroker Ace. And so did Beast of Metal. Yeah, No Tires Just Gas. Looks like it was you first then. Beast of Metal. And there you go. Yeah, I think we're on to a good race next week for Martinsville. Hopefully, I mean for the Cup Series, it's a crapshoot because who knows how it's going to work with the tires and whatever else. But yes, Stroker Ace, thinly based. I guess thinly is the critical term. It's very loosely based. Let's see. No. I think I did that one. Okay. Not that one. No, I think I'm seeing a lot of these that I know we've done. Let's see. No, not you. Okay, here we go. We'll do one more question here, folks. I think this will be a good one to round up on. Last question for this evening, and looking at another sport here, by the way. What driver captained varsity basketball and soccer teams for Halifax County High? Don't look it up. Try to guess it here. Let me read it again. What driver captained varsity basketball and soccer teams for Halifax County High? That is the question. What is the answer? Appreciate you guys tuning in here tonight. Maybe this will work. I don't want to aim this too much at my nose because I know my voice can kind of get nasally. But maybe this would be better. I don't know. I don't know if it sounds better. It's definitely easier for me to see the screen here. We'll just keep trying different things here. You had all these other shows where they have the camera zoomed in so close, you just see like here, and that's it. You can just have like their face right on the screen. I've had it before where the camera's been at this level and then looking up a little, and that just didn't look very good. So we'll just keep playing around with it. Luckily, we're going into the off season, so we'll have enough time to kind of try some different things. Let me read the question again here. What driver captained varsity basketball and soccer teams for Halifax County High? Oh, thank you for the birthday wishes. I had a wonderful birthday last week. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was very nice. It was very nice. Had a cup race that day. Of course, we talked about that on the show here with the thrilling victory for Denny Hamlin in Las Vegas. And now, just like that, we're very, very close to the end of the season. What driver captained varsity basketball and soccer teams for Halifax County High? And the answer is Jeff Burton. Jeff Burton. A couple of you got that. Let me go back here. Fireball Roberts, Ward Burton. Andrew Remner, you were close. You guessed Ward Burton. Looks like 6'11 Hornet was the first with Jeff Burton. Ernie Irvin's a good guess. It's a good guess, but yeah, it was Jeff Burton. How about that? So there you go. Small world, isn't it? Alrighty. Yeah, I know the mic. It's supposed to be pointed here as best it is towards the mouth. This is I have one of the Rode mics. It's the same one that Door Bumper Clear uses, and they seem to have it like really close to their face and stuff. So yeah, we'll give that a try there on that. Well, anyway, tell you what, yeah, good guess, 6'11 Hornet. There you go. You nailed it. That's about all the notes I have. I didn't miss anything. Okay, no, I didn't miss anything on that. Okay, good. So we already did a call inspection, and I think that will do it for the show here tonight. I feel like I blasted through the race pretty quick here. But again, really pretty much enjoyed, the action this weekend, even after picking Kyle Larson and watch him just drop like a rock on the last lap. I was too busy laughing at the same time, and I know Lastbro was too. He's pretty much already beat me for the championship, so that one's wrapped up. I feel a little better because I was thinking of picking Chase, and I was also thinking of picking somebody crazy. I was touching on this a little bit earlier that I was maybe going to pick like Cody Ware or maybe like Riley Herbst, and then both of them blew up. So I think this one was just pretty much just snake bit anyway, so that's fine. At least I had a shot at it. So we'll see what the story is there too. Alrighty, well, tell you what, folks, that will do it for this evening's show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. My Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock. My Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. Had a couple new members. Whoop, I think I lost the battery on one of the lights here. So it's perfect timing. You just got the batteries for this thing. I guess I got to charge those back up. We're testing the limits of this. It ran out just like Kyle Larson's fuel cell did. We'll see if this one conks out before the end of this show here. So before I do that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Feel free to check out my videos on this channel if you haven't already, including my video on Greg Sachs, the newest episode of Rise of the Field Fillers, which of course is on this channel here. And our next show is going to be next Sunday after the Cup Series race in Martinsville. We will talk about the next to last triple header weekend of the year with the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. And we'll cover all that action here on the show. So feel free to tune in. We'll be on here about 15 minutes after the show, and then we'll preview the action in Phoenix for our last trackside coverage of the season for 2025 and everything that's coming up there. So it's going to be very exciting, and I'm sure we'll have no shortage of stuff to talk about as well. So in the meantime, have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time.